Solomon's Key by Tecmo was an action puzzle hybrid released to arcades in 1986. It had been subsequently ported to many home consoles, most famously the Nintendo Entertainment System. In Solomon's Key, you play a wizard named Dana who travels through 50 rooms, finding the key in each one to open the door to the next, in order to uncover the secrets of a great king and magician named Solomon. By doing so, peace and order will be restored to the world, and you'll most certainly feel good about yourself. Numerous demons and obstacles stand in the way of your goal, but with quick reflexes and a sharp mind, it should be a cakewalk. Except it's not. Not at all. This is old school 8-bit Nintendo, where the difficulty levels of arcade games that were designed with the sole purpose of separating players with as many of their quarters as possible were not adjusted for the more relaxed atmosphere of the living room. Dana has available to him at all times a spell that creates blocks. Pressing the A button creates or removes a block directly in front of him. If you perform this while crouching, a block is created or removed on the level below your feet. You can also create blocks while jumping. Jumping into a block above you with your head twice will also remove it. Blocks not only serve as a way of maneuvering to your respective goals, but also to protect yourself from the monsters. Most of these enemies will destroy your block upon contact, save for the sparking ball, whose path will simply be redirected. Furthermore, you cannot create blocks on squares that already have something on them, such as items and these generators, and these monster generators, and these generators. That's fun. Take that in editing. Dana jumps by way of pressing up on your directional pad. Waving your wand around in mid-air makes his descent to terra firma more leisurely. Sometimes Dana will find potions that give him access to fireballs. These are thrown with the B button. The basic fireball only hits the enemy directly in front of him, while the most powerful super fireball will continue on its path, destroying as many enemies as it comes in contact with along the way. These fireballs, unfortunately, are severely limited considering many enemies simply respawn a second later. And your stockpile of fireballs are lost whenever you run out of lives. They're fine in an emergency, but you cannot depend on them as an optimal solution for any given room. It's probably best to just not even worry about them at all. The fun of Solomon's Key is figuring out the best way to get to the key and the exit as quickly, efficiently, and overall, safely as possible. Along the way, removed blocks will sometimes give you fun little surprises. Often, they're just score-boosting little tchotchkes, but sometimes they'll even be helpful items like fireballs, time extenders, or potions that destroy all of the room's enemies. By the way, yes, I am aware these things have names like the Jar of Magadora, Hourglass of Norm, Medicine of Mapros, and Crystal of Rad, but nobody ever calls it that while playing. Also in each room, either out in the open or hidden, is a bell, the Bell of Lyrak if you're really hung up on nomenclature, that releases a fairy. Collect 10 of these and you'll get an extra life. Also, every fourth room houses one of the symbols of the Zodiac. Collecting this will grant you access to a secret room where you can stock up on even more fairies and points. Speaking of points, the game decided it wanted to try and invent a new way of numerically measuring your skills. The GDV, or Game Deviation Value, is a number given to you at the end of the game. The instruction manual gives no indication what the number actually represents, other than saying it's based on technique in addition to the actual traditional score. I gather you can compare GDVs with your friends as a type of nerdiest tinkling contest ever, otherwise it's fairly pointless. Because you have enough to worry about overcoming the challenges presented in each room without having to concern yourself with getting a high game deviation value. And perhaps challenge is a bit of an understatement. This game is plain old hard, sometimes frustratingly so. And while Solomon's Key is not by any means unbeatable, not that I've ever had the patience to get even close to the end, the difficulty curve takes a sharp turn for the worse way too early. As mentioned, many of the enemies are of the constant respawning variety, meaning that dispatching them is often pointless. And Dana is a fragile little wizard, succumbing to defeat with the slightest touch of a foe. The game also seems to take delight in throwing all it can at you. Take this room for example. Getting up the middle is enough of a challenge, but then you have to contend with freeing up all these little sparks just to get to that key. Did the game really need to stick so many in there? I honestly feel like 2 or 3 would have been more than enough. Additionally, the game only gives you 3 lives before it's game over. While you can continue by entering a code, it only gets you as far as level 41. Furthermore, you lose any fireballs or keys you've collected. And I pity the poor player back in the late 80s who didn't have access to the code that allows you to continue, up plus A plus B, as they probably had to redo the earlier levels constantly just to try to advance just slightly further into the game, if at all. Experience is your only ally in solving these rooms, but sometimes even knowing what to do isn't a guarantee of victory, considering it's easy to slip up and jump or walk forward when you had intended to do the opposite. While it seems like an easy mistake to avoid, sometimes you have to depend on twitch reflexes to get around these deadly obstacles, increasing the likelihood of fat-fingering your D-pad, which sounds very dirty. So yeah, maybe its level of challenge is not my cup of tea, and yes, I do get a bit animated while playing it, but it's hard to say too many negative things about it because underneath it all, it's still a fairly good game. The music is catchy, and the graphics, while not as sharp as the arcade original, serve their purpose. The gameplay mechanics, meanwhile, are wonderfully unique with numerous creative ways to complete levels, replete with secrets to uncover along the way. It's just a shame that Tecmo couldn't rein in the difficulty a bit more to accommodate the more casual set. Nonetheless, Solomon's Key is still worth at least some of your time. If you have the patience to overcome its difficulty, you'll likely have a great time with it. Or you'll throw something across the room. Either way, sounds like the makings of a fun afternoon. This was Dave for Game Break. Like, comment, and subscribe, just because. I'll see you next time.